In this two-part Blender sculpting tutorial, I'll show you how to create this cartoon stylized squid character. So in part 1, we will be doing all of the sculpting, and then in part 2, we are going to use the vertex paint feature to paint the squid character sculpt. And then we'll also do the materials and the lighting and the rendering and the compositing to get the final image. And you can do this tutorial in the Eevee or Cycles rendering engine. I will be using Cycles for the tutorial, but you could definitely use Eevee if you want to. And if you'd like to purchase the finished project files of this tutorial as well as help to support this channel, then you can get that on my Gumroad store in my Patreon page. The links are in the description. And some great ways to help support the channel here on YouTube is by checking out the YouTube memberships by clicking down there on that join button. And you can also use the super thanks feature to send me a little tip if you enjoy this tutorial. Now I will be using my drawing tablet for the sculpting and the texture painting. Now you don't have to use a drawing tablet, you can just use your mouse, but if you have a drawing tablet then I would definitely recommend that you use it because I really think you can get much better sculpting and texture painting results when you're using a drawing tablet. So I'll be using my Huion screen drawing tablet, but you could also use one of those little pad tablets as well. And if you're interested in purchasing a drawing tablet, then I will have some Amazon affiliate links in the description to some tablets that I recommend, and those are affiliate links, so if you purchase something through those links, that will help me out, but with no extra cost to you. And if you'd like to learn more about sculpting in Blender, then definitely check out my sculpting tutorial playlist with the link in the description, where I have many more sculpting tutorials. So here we are in Blender, and my screencast keys will be right down here in the corner if you want to see what buttons I'm pressing. So I'll just select everything with the A key, and I will delete everything with the X key. Then I'll press Shift A, I'll go to Mesh, and I'm going to add an icosphere, and I just like to use icospheres because they have even geometry. And then right above me, if you click up there on the Add Icosphere Settings, you can turn up the subdivisions, and I'm going to turn the subdivisions pretty high to like a 6 because I do want lots of geometry to be able to sculpt the squid. And then I'll click on the arrow to close this. And then using the object context menu, I'll just shade the object smooth. And then let's also save this project, so I'll click on File and click on Save. And I'll just put this in a folder on my computer and I'll just call it Squid Sculpt and then click on Save Blender File. So then you can press Ctrl S as you're working on the project to save the Blender file. So let's go into Sculpt mode. So you can select the object and then you can click here on the Sculpting workspace and that'll go into Sculpt mode and we have all the different settings right over here. So now I'll set up Blender for sculpting. So I'm going to click here on the clay strips. I like to use the clay strips when I'm starting sculpting. And then I also want to turn the symmetry on so that when I sculpt over here, then it'll mirror it over to the other sides. So right up here there is the symmetry and I'm going to click on the X and the Y. This way if I move my mouse over the clay, you can see that there are actually 4 dots. So if I sculpt right here, it's going to mirror it, and so the sculpt is going to be the same all around. I'll just press Ctrl Z to undo that. So this way I can sculpt the body and the body will be mirrored to the other sides. I also want to turn on the Dyn Topo feature because I want Blender to add geometry as we sculpt so that if I zoom into a certain area and sculpt in that area, it'll add more geometry. So I'm going to click on the check mark here, click on OK, and then if I click on the Dyn Topo settings, I'm going to use a detail size of 3 because I like that, but if that's adding too much detail or it's too laggy, then you could turn it up. So if the detail size is smaller, there's going to be more detail, and if the detail size is bigger, there will be less detail. And then let's also change some of the brush settings. So if I click here on brush, I'm going to go right down here, and I'm going to make sure the accumulate and front faces only is turned on. And also if you want to, you can change the matte cap by clicking on this button here, and then you can choose either studio or matte cap. And if you click here, you're going to see a bunch of different matte caps. Now you're not going to see all of these because I've added in my own custom matte caps, but you can choose a matte cap if you want to. I'm going to choose this nice red one here, and I believe this is built into Blender on default, and I do really like this red one for sculpting. Alright, so I've brought Blender over here on my screen drawing tablet, and we can get started with the sculpting. And again, if you'd like to check out some drawing tablets that I recommend, then you can check out the affiliate links in the description. So I will start by hitting the G key, that will go to the grab brush, and I can also press the F key to make my brush bigger. I'll just drag that out and then click there. And I'm going to start by kind of tapping and kind of pulling this up, and I'm going to start by making the head of the squid. You can also press the 1 on the numpad to go to front view and just make sure you are looking at this from the front view, and then I can just bring this up here. So we're going to bring that up there and kind of just tap along and pull it out, and then we're going to pull the bottom part down here, and his eyes are going to be kind of like down here. So I'll bring that down and bring this out a little bit. We're kind of just making like an egg shape. but then it's going to get smaller here, and then it's also going to get bigger. So I'm going to now pull this even farther down and then start to pull this out. And I need to go over here on the side, look at the side of the sculpt, and just kind of tap and pull that out just like that. And then here in the center, I want to bring this in a little bit, and then I want to bring this out. So it's going to come here to kind of a point, then right up here, it'll come out the most. Then it's going to go back in a little bit here, and I'll go over here to the side again, navigate to the side, and I will kind of just tap in this in here and make it a bit smaller, and then it's going to get a bit bigger along here. So you can kind of see the shape that we're making. So I'm just lightly tapping along here. And then what I can also do is click right up here to go to the clay strips brush, and you can press the F key to change the size of your brush. And I'm going to start to go along here and just add a little bit of clay just to kind of pop that out. And then after you sculpt some clay, you can hold down the shift key and sculpt along here, and that'll activate the smoothing. So you can just kind of smooth out the part that you've sculpted. So I'm just going to go along here and just make this pop out a little bit more and just make it a bit round all the way around here. And then hold down the shift key and go back and smooth out the clay. Now right down here, I don't want this to come out that far. So what I'm gonna do is hold down the control key, and then I can press in, and that's just gonna push in the clay. And I'm just gonna push it in just a little bit, kind of like that, going along there. And then hold down the shift key and just lightly press down, go around in circles and kind of smooth that out. And I wanna define the shape a little bit better. So I'm gonna pull this up a little bit more, pull this out a little bit more, and then just push this in just a little bit more, just so that those shapes are a bit stronger. And then don't forget to press Ctrl S as you're working on the project to save it. All right, so I'm now going to click right back here on the clay strips brush, and we're going to navigate over here to the top, and I'm going to zoom in. So I will press the F key to make my brush a bit smaller, and then I'm just going to go along here, and I'm just going to add kind of a crease, and we're just showing where the fin is going to be. So I'm just going to go along here, add a bit more of a crease there, just kind of bump that out a bit more. And the Dyn Topo got turned off for some reason. I don't know why that got turned off, but I'm going to click here and then just click on OK to turn that back on. So now as we sculpt, it's going to add geometry. And I think the geometry is a bit too high detail right now. So if I click on the Dyn Topo, I will just change this detail size to like a 4 for now. So now I can go along there and just start to show where the fin is. So now if I go here to the front, you can see that is where the fin is going to be. Now I want to bring the fin out a lot more. So what I'm going to do is hit the M key to go to the mask brush. So I want to mask out any area that I don't want to be affected by the sculpt. So I'm going to go along here and press down hard, and I'm going to mask in this entire area around the fin. So around here, kind of down here, just like that. Just kind of masking out that area and making it a dark color. And also, if you go here to the strength, you can bring this all up to 1, and that way when I press down with my pen, it's going to be stronger, so the mask brush will be stronger. And I just want to make this very dark, so all around here, make sure that's nice and dark, and all around here as well, just because I don't want to move this area around. So now that I've masked out that area, I will hit G for the grab brush. I can also press the F key to make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to navigate here to the front, and then I can just kind of tap here and I can pull this up. We're going to make the basic fin shape. So I'm going to tap along here, pull that out, and you can see where the mask was, it's not being affected. So now I can bring this up, and it's kind of going to be a triangle. So we're going to push this in so it's a bit sharper there. Then this can kind of come in slightly, and then it can kind of come out here. And then right here, I do want to flatten this down a bit more. So I'll kind of tap there, push that down, and pull this up. And if I go here to the side, that is a little bit thick. So I'm going to kind of tap along here and just kind of push that in a little bit, just so it's a little bit more thin. So I can now press Alt M, and that is going to get rid of the mask. And then I can click back here on the clay strips brush, and you can see there are some stretched out areas. So we have the Dyn Topo on, so it'll add geometry as we sculpt. So if I just kind of sculpt along here, you can see that now it's fixing that geometry because I'm sculpting along that area, so it's adding more geometry. So I'm just going to sculpt along here and add a bit more geometry to kind of some of the stretched areas. You can also see there's a spot right here where the mask kind of got messed up. So I can just go along there, add a bit more geometry, and then just hold down the shift key to activate the smoothing, and then hold down the shift key to activate the smoothing, and I can smooth that out there, and I can smooth this out as well, and smooth that all out there. Go along here and kind of sculpt a few other areas that might be a bit lumpy, so just kind of adding a bit more clay there, and then holding down the shift key to smooth that out. Also right here, kind of sculpt along there, and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. That was looking pretty good. You can also see the details a bit low here, so I'm just going to sculpt along here, and that's going to add more geometry, and then I can hold down the shift key and I can smooth that area out. And then to sharpen up this area right here, I can go to the crease brush and I can press down with my pen and I can just crease in that spot right there. So I'm just going to crease that in just to define that shape a bit better. And then if you want to, you can hold down the shift key and lightly smooth out the edges, just because I want to smooth it out a little bit more but still keep that crease. So I'm not smoothing right on the crease, I'm kind of smoothing along the edge of the crease. I think I need to hold down the shift key and smooth that all out a bit more. All right, now here on the bottom, I do just want a little bit more space. So I'll hit the G key to go to the grab brush, and I'm just going to tap along here and just kind of pull down the bottom just a little bit, not too much, but I do want a little bit more space there so I can kind of sculpt that bottom area. All right, so what I'm now going to do is go here to the clay strips brush, and we're going to be sculpting the eyes kind of about here, and then we're going to also be sculpting another little area here, kind of like a donut shape. So I will start by sculpting that. So I'm going to go along here and add a bit of clay here, just going along. Then on the edge, it's going to come down a little bit, and then because we have the mirror on, it's mirroring it over to the other sides, so I can go like this and then go down and then up like that. So just going along there, kind of creating that donut shape. I think I'll just make it bump out a little bit more, so I'm going to add another layer of clay on top of that. And then once I've sculpted that, you can see that it's pretty rough and I want it to be kind of round, so I'm going to hold down the shift key and go all along there and just smooth that out, make it much more smooth on the edges. Also right up here, hold down the shift key and just lightly go back and forth along those edges there. You can hit the G key for the grab brush and you can pull this down if you want to. I think it is slightly high. And I might go back to the clay strips brush and I might just go along here and add a bit more layers of clay to pop it out a little bit more, because I think it is just a little bit small. I want to make it pop out a little bit more. So let's add a bit more layer of clay just to bring it out a bit more, and then hold down the shift key and lightly go back there and just smooth out that area. All right, so I now want to sculpt the eyes. However, I don't want to sculpt the eyes on the back. I just want to sculpt the eyes on the front. So if I navigate to the top here, you can see there is the 4 little blue dots there. So that is the mirror. So I'm going to click here to turn off the Y, and now you can see it's still mirroring on this way on the X, but not on the Y. So I can just sculpt one eye here and it'll mirror it over to this side, but not on the back of the sculpt. So I will press the F key to make my brush a bit smaller, and we can now kind of sculpt the eye. So I'm going to start by going around in big circles here, just kind of showing where the shape is. And I actually want these eyes to be a bit farther apart. So I'll just go along here in circles, just adding clay there. And then you can hold down the control key and kind of push in, because I do want a little bit of space in between the eyes. So hold down the control key, push in, and just make those eyes pop out. And we are going to be having a different object for the actual eyeballs, but these are more like the eye sockets or where the eyes are going to sit. I can hit the G key for the grab brush, and I can kind of tap along here and just kind of change the shape. So I might just go here to the side and pop it out a little bit. And then I want to go here to the clay strips brush, and I do want to add a little bit more down here. So I'm going to go along and just kind of go in a circle, and I can actually press the F key to make my brush quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to go along here and just add a bit more clay so that the bottom of the head is coming down a bit more, and then hold down the shift key and you can kind of smooth that out so it's kind of nice and round. And then right here in the center, I can also press the F key to make my brush a bit smaller. And to sculpt in, I can hold down the control key and then click down on my pen, and I can go around here in circles and kind of sculpt in there instead. And then I can hold down the shift key and smooth that all out. So then once I've brought out the eyes quite a bit more, I'm just going to hold down the shift key and lightly smooth it out. So smooth that around there, kind of smooth this around here. Also go here to the side of the eye and just lightly smoothing that out there. And then let's also crease this so that it's a bit stronger of a shape. So I'll go here to the crease brush, and I can go along here and just kind of crease that in, and crease down here, crease in between the eyes, and kind of crease around here. I can also like make a little crease right here. I think that gives the eyes a nice stylized look by just kind of creasing that in there. And also right up here, I can kind of crease this in a little bit if I want to. Let's also make like some bags under the eyes. I think that's just kind of funny for this kind of cartoon character. So I'm gonna crease around here kind of in these little C shapes, kind of moon shapes. And also if I go here to the clay strips brush, I can kind of go along here and go back and forth, and we're just going to pop out the bags under the eyes, and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out again, just like that. Smooth that out as well. And then I think it would be cool to add kind of like some eyebrows. So I'm going to go along here and go up and then over, and we're just going to add some little cartoony eyebrows. Just kind of pop those out, up like this and then down like that. And then just to crease these in, I'll go back to the crease brush, and I will kind of crease around the edges. Let's also press Ctrl S to save the file again. So just keep on creasing around the edges of the eyebrows, and then go around here in a circle, and then just crease back up here, and crease over like that. And then just hold down the shift key and very, very lightly smooth that out, because I don't want those edges to be super sharp. I want them to be kind of a bit more smooth. So just very lightly creasing those edges there, or smoothing those edges. I think I will hit the G key for the grab brush, and I'll go down here to the bottom, and I'll just kind of push this out a bit just so it's a bit bigger. Kind of push that out there. All right, so now let's sculpt the tentacles of the squid. So to sculpt the tentacles, I'm gonna go right here to the snake hook brush, and then I will press the F key to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'll zoom in a bit. So the snake hook brush is really great for this kind of sculpting, because you can click and drag, and you can just like drag out an area, and it's gonna keep on adding geometry. I'm gonna zoom in kind of to about here, and then I'll click and start to pull out, and actually I wanna press Ctrl Z to undo that because I was a bit too close to this spot. So what I'll do actually is hit G for the grab brush, and I will just click and drag and just kind of pull this out a little bit more and pull it out a little bit farther away from the eyes. So just like that, maybe pull this out a little bit as well and pull this up a bit. So I will now click here to the snake hook brush, and I'll go here kind of to the side, maybe make my brush a little bit bigger, and then I will click and drag to kind of pull this out. And if it is too thin, then we can inflate it later. So if it is a bit too thin, don't worry about that. Just click and drag out these first two ones. And because it's mirroring, we only have to sculpt half of them. So we'll be sculpting 4 of them on this side, and then it will mirror the other 4 on that side. Click and drag, pull that out. And what I love about the snake hook brush is it will add geometry if you have the Dyn topo on. So I can drag this out, and then after I bring it out a bit, then I want to kind of rotate it coming back like this, and then it's going to kind of go over just like that. You can kind of click and drag to kind of pull it around. Now you can see those are a bit thin, so to make them thicker, let's go here to the inflate brush. And I will press the F key to make my brush a little bit bigger, and then I can just go along here and I can inflate the tentacles. Just inflate the back of it as well. You can kind of go around in circles and just lightly press down and kind of try to evenly inflate it, although I want the top part here to be a bit thicker, and then as it goes down it'll be a little bit more thin. And then you can hold down the shift key and smooth out any areas that needed to be smoothed out. You can also hit G for the grab brush. You can kind of pull these around and just play around with the shape of that. And then you can see right here I did end up messing up the shape there, so I'm going to go back to the clay strips brush, and then I can just go along there and add a bit more clay. Also hold down the Control key as I sculpt, just to push that part in, and then I can hold down the shift key and just lightly smooth that out. I'll go back to the grab brush by hitting the G key, and then I want to make this a bit more smooth, so I'm going to bring this out and then kind of bring it down a little bit. So something like that is pretty good. All right, so I'm now going to make 2 more right here, so we'll make one here and then we'll mirror it over. And this one I actually want to have coming up, so he's maybe almost looking like he's waving, or maybe he's swimming or something. So let's go here to the snake hook brush again. We'll go here to the side, and I can click and drag just to pull out another tentacle, bring this down here, and then we're just gonna kind of bring it up. So go here to the front, and we'll rotate that around, and we'll bring it up like this. And then we'll kind of have it rotate sideways. You can kind of pull this around. So something like that is pretty good. I think I want to bring it up a little bit and maybe bring this a bit closer to his body. So something like that, that's pretty cool. All right, and then if you want to inflate this again, you can. So go to the inflate brush. You can go along here and just kind of pop that out, go along there. And then over on this side, go along there and kind of inflate that as well. And then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. Hold down the shift key, smooth that out there. And you can kind of zoom in closer and kind of inflate a few more areas. I'm just inflating that. And again, because I have the Dyn topo on, it's adding more geometry. So if I zoom in closely and then kind of sculpt along there, it's adding more geometry. So then I can smooth it out, and you can see it's much more smooth now. And it'll go here to the other side. So go to the back of it, and I can go along here, inflate that just a little bit, and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. Now I almost want to make kind of like a leaf shape around here on the end of it. So what I'm going to do is go to the draw brush. Actually, I think the draw brush will be better for this. And I'll press the F key, make my brush a little bit bigger. And then I want to go along here and kind of just bring this out, just kind of make it pop out a little bit. And then over on this side, we'll do the same thing. So just go along there, and we're kind of making, as you can see, kind of like a leaf shape. Then I can go back to the grab brush by hitting the G key, and then I can just kind of tap the edges and just kind of change the shape of that so it's a bit more like a leaf. So bring that down, bring that over, zoom out, see how that is looking. That's pretty cool. I think it is maybe a little bit too big, so I'm going to push in the sides a bit and make it a little bit smaller. And then if I use the grab brush again, just kind of push this forward a little bit so it's a bit farther away from his body. Something like that is pretty good. Maybe this entire thing, bring it a little bit more forward because we do have more to make on the back, so I just want a bit more space. All right, press Control S again to save, and let's do the other two on the back here. So these two other ones are just gonna kind of come down here on the back. So I will go back here to the snake hook brush, press the F key, make my brush smaller, and I can just kind of pull this one out here. We're gonna have it kind of coming out farther, like this, kind of maybe push it over to the side a little bit. And then I might as well do this right now. Just kind of bring this out and push that in and bring this out. We're a little bit low on space here. So if you need to, you can go to the grab brush. You can kind of push these around just so that we have a bit more space. Like if you need to push this tentacle over here so you have room for the other two. And also right here, these are kind of connecting so I can push that down a bit. And then let's go back to the snake hook brush. And again, if it's a bit too small, like these are a bit too small, I can inflate it later. So I'm gonna just click and drag, make that go in over there and then down, and then we'll just kind of have it pop back up. I think that kind of gives it a nice stylized look. I'll go to the grab brush and kind of push this over to the side so we have a bit more space for the last one, and then go back to the snake hook brush, and we're going to have it do a similar thing. So come out, maybe have it go a bit farther like that, and we're going to have it go down, we're going to have it curve around, and then kind of come back just like that. And that one's getting pretty thin, but we will thicken that up. Kind of look on that from all angles. And I think I will go to the grab brush, and I just want to kind of even this out a little bit more. So I'm going to push these over a bit farther. Maybe go down here to the bottom and kind of push these out. Just kind of play around with where they are exactly. All right, so I now want to thicken these up a bit more, but let's first press Control S again, just save the project. And then we will just go here to the inflate brush, and I can go along here and just kind of make that a little bit thicker, but I do want it to be a bit more thin when it gets down to the bottom. And then as it comes up here, it's going to be a bit thicker. And then as it comes down, it'll be a little bit more thin. So just go along there. I'm just lightly pressing down because I don't want to do anything too strong. So I'm just pressing down with my pen, going along there. All right, let's go to the back again. Just push that along. And then you can see there are some jagged areas or some sharp geometry. So if you just hold down the Shift key and lightly press down on the tablet, you can just lightly smooth that out there and smooth that out there. Just go along there and over here, kind of smooth that out because that's a bit rough, and smooth that out there. And this one right here needs to be a bit thicker, so I'm just going to thicken this up again. All right, and then smooth that out just a little bit. Right here it's a bit sharp, so I'm going to smooth that out. And actually I think I'll just go to the draw brush and just kind of go along here and add a bit more geometry because it's kind of pointy there. So just adding a bit more geometry along there, and then kind of zoom in really close, and I'll just hold down the Shift key, kind of smooth that out there because it's a bit sharp. All right, that is a bit better. So I'm just kind of looking around at all angles, making sure I like the shape of it. And then if you want to, you can go to the grab brush and just change any shape. So like this, I might pop out a little bit. Over here on the side, I might just kind of push this in a little bit. So now that we've sculpted the base of the squid, I want to turn off the symmetry, and I just want to change a few things so that it's not fully symmetrized, because right now it's basically an exact mirror. This side is exactly the same as this side. So I'm going to click here to turn off the mirror. Let's also press Control S again to save the file. And then I want to do just a few things to add a bit more details. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'll go to the clay strips brush. And I'm first going to make like a few little holes just to add some stylized detail to the squid. So make my brush a bit smaller, and then I'll hold down the Control key, and I'm going to go along here, and I'm going to make kind of a little hole right in there. And then hold down the Shift key and smooth out the edges. Kind of go around there in a circle and smooth out the edges there, just like that. And then I can kind of go like down here, and I can make like a little hole there. So just go around in circles, holding down the Control key, and then smooth that out there. Go around in circles there and smooth that out there. I can also go back up to this one and go around in a circle just to add a bit more geometry, and then hold down the Shift key and smooth it out. So that's a bit of a sharper edge. All right, that's kind of cool. So you can see just adding like some little stylized shapes there. I think that looks pretty cool. Let's do a few more of these. So I'll go right over here, kind of zoom in closely, and then I can hold down the Control key and make another one there. Going around here just to kind of pop that out, and then hold down the Shift key and smooth out the edges there, just so that shape is kind of popping out. And also if you want to, you can go to the crease brush, and then using the crease brush, you can just kind of crease around inside there. And then you can also hold down the Control key and crease around the edges just to pop that out. and then hold down the shift key and lightly smooth out any areas, not getting rid of that shape, but just lightly smoothing that out there. So I still want to keep the crease, but just smoothing out the flat areas. So I'll just add a few more details to some of these areas here and then smooth that out as well. And then also I'll go to the back here and I think I'll add a few more. So on the back of the squid's head, I'll add one there, kind of smooth that out as well. And then also maybe right up here, add another one. Maybe this one is going to be more circular. All right, so that is pretty good. I'll press Ctrl S to save that. So because the symmetry is still turned off, I want to go here to the grab brush. So I'll just hit the G key or click here on the grab brush, and I want to move the tentacles around just so that they're slightly different. And that'll just give a bit of variation. So I'm going to drag this one up here. Also maybe like right over here, bring this one down a little bit. And this one, maybe bring it up a little bit just to add a bit of variation. Also right here, I can bring this one up a little bit. And this one, I can maybe bring down. Really just adding a bit more variation so that the sculpt looks a bit more unique on each side. And it doesn't look exactly symmetrical. So I'm now going to be adding the suction cups or the suckers, which are on the tentacles. And I always thought of them as being kind of like suction cups, but when I looked online, they were called suckers. Everyone seemed to call them suckers on articles about squid and octopus. So I'm going to call them suckers. So to add the suckers, I'm going to go right here to the draw brush, and then I'm going to do a few settings to the brush. So I'm going to click on the stroke settings here, and I'm going to take the spacing and I'm going to turn this to 100. So this way, now if I click and drag, instead of it sculpting one large sculpt, it's going to have some little bumps. So let me just press Ctrl Z, do that again so you can see what I'm doing. So you can see as I draw, it's making all these little dots here because the stroke settings are turned to 100 on the spacing. And then also if I click here on the fall off, I want to click on this smooth fall off and I want to change it to the custom instead. And then I want to change the shape of this so that it looks like a sucker. So to make the shape of the sucker, you can go here to the fall off, and this one right here, I'm going to drag this all the way down. Then I'm going to drag this one kind of up over here, and then this one up here, I'm going to drag down kind of like that. So this is going to come over here, this one will go like this and it'll come down. So this is going to be the shape of the sucker. So it'll start here in the very middle, which will be the smallest, then it will kind of go up here on the edges and then it will go back down. So if I press the F key to make my brush bigger, I can now click and drag and you can see what that's made. So it's made that shape there. So I'll press Ctrl Z to undo that. And then also here on the Dyn Topo, I do want to take the detail size and turn it up to like a 3, just so that there's a bit more detail. So I can now press the F key to make my brush smaller, and I'm going to go along here and I'm going to add all the suckers along the tentacles. So I can just go along here and I can click and drag, and you can see as I'm dragging, because we have that spacing turned up, it's evenly placing these around. And also if you want to manually add them, you can just click once and then drag over, but you can see that it's very subtle. So here on the strength, I could turn this up. Maybe I'll turn the strength all the way up to 1. And now if I just click, there we go, that's pretty good. And I think I might turn the strength up even more. So here on the strength, I'll turn this up to like a 2. And it will depend on how hard you press with your drawing tablet, because if you have a drawing tablet, then it probably has the pen pressure sensitivity. But I'm going to turn mine up to 2, and then I can just kind of tap along here and I can just lightly tap, and we're going to add all those little suckers there. And then if you want to, you can also click and drag, but if I click and drag, it might be a bit too strong. So if I'm clicking and dragging, then I'm going to instead maybe just turn this to like a 0.7 on the strength. So you can just play around with the strength, but you can see 0.7 is pretty good, just adding all those suckers there. Although I think I actually prefer to just place them manually rather than dragging. So I'm going to turn the strength here up to 2, just because I think that's a bit more easy. I just find it's a bit easier to just click and place each one instead. And you can have some of them be a bit bigger and some of them be a bit smaller. So you can press the F key, make your brush a bit bigger, and then you can add some which are a bit bigger, and others which are a bit smaller. So I'm just going to continue to go along here and go along the inside of the tentacles. And then as it goes down, I am going to have it get a bit smaller. So as they go down, I'll kind of zoom in, and I can also make my brush a bit smaller. And I'm going to have them get smaller. So they're kind of going to be more detailed and smaller as they go down. So now if I zoom out, you can really see how that's looking. That's looking really cool. All right, so I'm just going to continue to go along here and add all the suckers on the squid. And this is going to take quite a while, so I'm not going to show you all of it. I will skip over a little bit of it just because it is going to take quite a while. It is kind of time consuming, but it is pretty fun. So I will just skip over some of it. I'm not going to show you the entire process. And I am doing it in the inside, not the outside of the squid. So I'm doing it on the inside of the squid. All right, that is pretty good. So now I'll go over here and I'll do this one, and I'll just go along there and add a few more there. And something else that I might do is just turn the pen pressure off. So I'm going to click on this button here, and that'll get rid of the pen pressure. And now that the pen pressure is turned off, I can change the strength. So I think I'll turn this to like a 0.6. And now it doesn't matter how hard I press, they're always going to be the same strength. And I think I like that just a bit better because this way it doesn't matter how hard I press with my pen, they're all going to come out at about the same amount. So I'm actually upside down right now, so I'm going to rotate over and rotate back, and then I can go along here and just add a bit more of those suckers on this area here so that the squid can like grab onto things. And then also if you want to go around here on the edges and just add a few more, you can. And then around here, I'll add a few more, and then let's start to go down the next one here, and almost done with this one, just kind of finishing that one up. All right, so we have a few more, so I'll do this one over here. So I'll zoom in here, go along. They kind of look like Cheerios, and then go down here and just going around that one there, going back into the center, and then just connecting that up with the rest of them down here, just kind of filling in all that detail. All right, that is looking pretty cool. We are almost done, just have a few more left. So I need to do this one over here. So I need to add one there, and then I'll just go along here and finish this one up here. And getting towards the end, I'll just zoom in a bit, and that way the ones which are down here at the bottom will be a bit smaller. And going along here and just adding a few on the edges. And this last one here, so just tapping back and forth, adding that there. The last one here, just going back and forth, and just finding any areas that you might need to add a few more. All right, just taking a look at that from the bottom, and I think I want to add a few more suckers kind of up here, and maybe over here just add a few more small ones. And then I do want to add just a few more suckers in a few spots here and there, just because it's kind of stylized and I think it looks cool. So I'm going to zoom in here kind of to the front of the squid, and I'm just going to add a few suckers here and there. That's kind of cool, just adding a few there. I thought it also would be cool to add a few suckers up here, even though probably in real life they wouldn't have them up here. I just thought it would be cool just to kind of make it kind of stylized because it's a stylized cartoony character, and maybe adding a few more up here. And maybe over here on the side of the character. I think groups of 3 look pretty cool. I think that just looks really nice to add kind of groups of 3 of them. So if you just do want to add little groups of 3 of them here and there, I think that just looks really nice. And maybe on the back here, even though you're not going to see it in the front render, you could just add a few more. Maybe just like 2 of them there, that's pretty cool. All right, so with that sculpting all finished, I'm going to click back here on the layout. This will just go back to the layout and go back to object mode, and I can press Control S to save this one more time. And so this is gonna wrap it up for part 1 of the Squid sculpting tutorial series. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying this tutorial series. And in part 2, we are going to be doing the painting, and we're gonna be using Blender's vertex painting feature to paint this, so we won't be adding texture maps or doing any UV unwrapping. We'll just be using the vertex painting to paint the squid. So when part 2 is released, it'll be right up there on the end screen, and I'll also have the link in the description. So I hope you enjoyed this, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.